Part 1. Low fuel. I want to say it was just bad luck, a wrong turn, a missed exit, a dying phone. But that would mean what happened at Carson's was a coincidence. And I don't believe in coincidence anymore. There were 5 of us. Me, Drew, driving, Taylor, Jen, and Liv. We were heading back to campus after a long weekend at some remote Airbnb in the Appalachians, middle of nowhere, no cell towers, barely any roads. It was supposed to be a reset trip. Just friends, mountains, no responsibilities, no signal. We'd had a good time, long hikes, a bottle of whiskey too many, inside jokes that wouldn't make sense to anyone else. But that drive back? It was different. Off. We left a little after 6 p.m. The sun dipped fast behind the trees. We'd meant to connect with the main highway before dark, but somewhere between Google Maps rerouting and a road closure that didn't show up on GPS, we found ourselves on a cracked two-lane that curved through valleys and pine walls like we were descending into something. None of us even remembered taking a turn. It was like we were just there. By 11:40 p.m., we were all fried, eyes sore, stomachs empty, and the gas gauge hanging near empty. "This is sketchy," Jen muttered, hugging her hoodie tighter. "Feels like the kind of road people vanish on." "Shut up," Taylor said from the back seat. "Don't say that." Drew squinted at the dashboard. "We'll stop at the next place we see. Whatever it is." That's when we saw it. An old sign, flickering red against the blackness of trees. Carson's, 24 hours. We hadn't passed a single building for over an hour, and suddenly there it was, a gas station, dropped like a prop onto the side of the road. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. 2 gas pumps. A bent metal sign. And a building that looked like it had been standing longer than any of us had been alive. "Finally," Drew said, pulling in without asking. The gravel crunched under our tires like bones. The whole lot felt sunken, like the ground was swallowing it slow. There was a car already there, a brown station wagon with rust on every panel. It sat next to the farthest pump. No one inside. Windows fogged. Drew stepped out and started fueling. Or trying to. The pump handle clicked, but nothing came out. He tapped the gauge and shook his head. "Must be the other one," he muttered, getting back in to move the car. Jen and I decided to go inside for snacks and water. We figured the rest would handle it. As soon as the door opened, that ding sound hit, mechanical and slow, like it was running underwater. The air smelled like old rubber and something faintly sweet, but spoiled. Inside, it was dim. The lights overhead hummed and flickered like they were struggling to stay alive. Rows of metal shelves, mostly empty. The cooler in the back was running, but the drinks inside were ancient. There was a rack of newspapers by the counter, dates from decades ago, or maybe just printed that way to look retro. I couldn't tell. Behind the counter sat a man. Mid-70s, maybe older. Gaunt. Skin like wax paper. Eyes too wide, not blinking nearly enough. He didn't say anything when we walked in. "Hi," I said, just grabbing water. "You open." He nodded once. Jen glanced at the back. "Restroom." He raised a bony finger and pointed, just past the mirror. We both looked. There was no mirror, just a dark hallway that seemed to bend in the wrong direction. "I'll wait," Jen whispered. We grabbed 2 dusty water bottles and brought them to the counter. The man rang them up but never looked at the register. He just stared between us, then smiled. Strange night to be on this road. I laughed nervously. "Yeah, took a wrong turn somewhere." He nodded. "That's what they always say." Part 2, Missing Miles. We stepped outside into a different kind of silence. Not peaceful, not rural quiet. This was something else, an emptiness so complete it buzzed in your ears. The kind of silence that makes you check your surroundings like you just woke up in the wrong version of the world. And the car was gone. Not just the CRV. The station wagon, too. The entire lot looked different. More decayed. One of the floodlights overhead was out now, leaving half the area in shadows. The remaining light buzzed erratically, throwing long, twitching silhouettes across the ground. "What the hell?" I whispered. Jen turned in a slow circle. "Where'd they go? Did they move it? Where would they even move it to?" I said, "There's no one else here." The road was empty in both directions. And I mean empty. It stretched off into blackness, like the world ended 30 feet past the gas station. I couldn't even hear crickets. "Drew," Jen shouted. "Taylor? Liv?" No answer. Just the hum of the broken light and the low whine of something in the distance. A sound like wind, but wrong. Hollow. We checked around the side of the station, then behind it. Nothing but dead grass and a tree line so dense it looked solid. That's when Jen's voice dropped to a whisper. "What happened to the second pump?" I looked back. She was right. There had been 2 pumps, one covered, one working. Now there was just one. Old, rusted, and clearly out of order. No. I saw Drew using the other one," I said, walking up to it. "It was working. I saw him tap it. I heard it click." "There was a brown station wagon," Jen said. "Parked right there. I remember the way the taillights flickered. I remember the condensation on the windows. That was real." I turned back toward the store. The clerk was still at the counter, just watching, not reacting, not blinking. It didn't make sense. None of it did. "We're being screwed with," I muttered. "They're messing with us." Jen didn't answer. I looked at her, really looked. She was staring at the far end of the lot, toward the road. "What is it?" "I don't know," she said, her voice barely audible. "I feel like we've done this before." "What?" "Like, I've stood here. This exact spot. You were on my left. The car was gone. And I said. She trailed off. I felt a ripple in my chest. Not fear, something deeper. Like a pressure in the air around us had shifted. Like reality was off by a degree or two. We walked quickly back into the store. The bell above the door gave the same rusted screech. The man behind the counter didn't move. "I need to ask you again," I said, voice firm. "Our friends. You saw them. We were 5. We pulled in 10 minutes ago." He didn't blink. "Only saw the 2 of you." Jen snapped. No. You saw us. You rang us up. I remember," I added. "I paid for water. You handed me a receipt. You said people don't come this way unless they've been here before," Jen added, trembling now. "You said that. So don't pretend we imagined this." He finally tilted his head, just slightly, and smiled. "Memory's tricky," he said, "especially this late." His voice wasn't threatening. It was worse, indifferent, like we were arguing about something long resolved. We turned to leave, but then Jen stopped dead in the doorway. "What?" I asked. She pointed at the wall by the exit. There was a mirror there now. It hadn't been there when we entered. The frame was chipped wood, ornate and wrong. Almost too detailed, like it belonged in a haunted mansion, not a roadside gas station. And the reflection wasn't right. In it, we saw ourselves. But not just us. There was someone else behind us. Standing still. No face. Just a tall silhouette. When we turned around in real life, the store was empty. When we turned back to the mirror, we were alone in it again. We left without another word. Outside, the cold had returned. The warm air was gone. The shadows felt closer. And that's when Jen said it, like it was the first time she truly meant it. "We shouldn't have stopped here." Part 3. The loop. We started walking. There was nothing else to do. No sign of the car, no way to call anyone, and the clerk wasn't giving us answers. So we picked a direction, away from Carson's, and followed the cracked road east, where we figured the highway might be. We must have walked for 20 minutes. Not a single car passed us. No sounds except our shoes on the asphalt and the occasional whisper of wind in the trees. I checked my phone even though I knew there'd be no signal. Still nothing. Then Jen stopped. I followed her gaze and froze. We were looking at Carson's again. The lights. The sign. The gravel lot. It was all there, maybe 30 feet ahead. But we walked, I whispered. Jen didn't say anything. We walked away from it. She just shook her head. No, I don't think we did. We turned around. The road behind us, it was just forest now. No sign of where we'd come from. Like the road had vanished behind us while we were walking. We were boxed in. We tried again, this time west. We walked for longer, maybe an hour, according to my phone. My legs ached. I swear we passed the same tree 3 times. A large oak with a crooked branch hanging low like an arm. The 3rd time we passed it, Jen stopped and screamed at it. Where is everyone? Her voice echoed like it was swallowed whole. I wanted to believe we were just looping in a circle, that maybe it was some bizarre, circular service road. But that didn't explain what we saw next. We came up over a small hill, the only hill we'd seen all night, and there it was again. Carson's. Only, this time it was different. The sign was newer. No flicker. The letters glowed steady. The windows were cleaner. There was a different car out front, a white sedan with fogged windows. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat, staring at the steering wheel. I called out. They didn't move. We jogged down the hill. My chest was pounding. With hope or fear, I wasn't sure. As we got closer, I could see it wasn't the same building. It looked the same, yes, but some details had changed. The light fixtures, the trim, even the smell in the air. This version of Carson's didn't smell like dust and rubber. It smelled like burnt hair. The person in the car finally looked up. It was Taylor. She looked right at us. No shock, no joy, just an expression I still can't fully explain. Blank. Like her face was half forgotten. Taylor, I shouted, banging on the window. She didn't move, didn't open the door. She just stared. Then she started the engine and slowly backed the car into the darkness beyond the lot. No headlights. Gone. Did you see her eyes? Jen whispered. Yeah, I said. They didn't look like hers. That version of Carson's didn't have a clerk. The door was locked. The pump hoses were gone, replaced with old-style metal nozzles that didn't even have credit card slots. We left again, this time on foot, deeper into the woods. We thought maybe we could cut through the trees and find the real road. But the trees didn't work the way they were supposed to. We walked for an hour and somehow ended up back on the same road. Same cracked pavement. Same oil stains. I even found the crushed cigarette Drew had flicked earlier that night. And in the distance, Carson's again. The lights were flickering. The sign was tilted again, back to the way it had been when we first arrived. I wanted to scream. Jen just sat on the edge of the road and held her head in her hands. I think we're stuck, she said. I nodded. I couldn't feel my fingers. I think we've been stuck. That night, we slept in shifts outside the gas station. We were too scared to go back inside. At some point near dawn, I heard the door chime behind me. I spun around, heart slamming in my chest. There was no one there, but the lights inside were on now. And in the cooler section, behind the fogged-up glass, were photos. Dozens of them. Of people. Of us. Part 4. The versions. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. I was cold, My back hurt from sleeping on the ground, and the sky was still that same static gray. No sun, no stars, just light that didn't come from anywhere. Jen was already awake. She hadn't slept. She sat on the curb with her knees tucked to her chest, staring at the gas station like it had spoken to her in her dreams. Maybe it had. I stood up and looked inside. The lights were on again. Inside the cooler, where the sodas should have been, were photos, real ones. Polaroids, some sun-faded, some recent, all taped on the inside of the glass. People, families, couples, teenagers like us, people standing outside Carson's. Some were smiling, some were crying, and some were us. Jen and I, standing in front of the pumps, arms around Drew and Taylor. A perfect moment, one I have no memory of. In one photo, I'm inside the store, behind the counter, smiling. In another, Jen is sweeping the front step, wearing that same blue dress we saw on the Silent Woman the first time we looped back here. My throat closed. We left the store again, fast. I needed air. But even the air here felt used, like we were breathing the same lungfuls over and over. I don't think we're just stuck here, Jen said suddenly. What? I think we've been copied, or fractured, or repeated. She nodded. We walked to the far side of the building. Something had changed again. A door that hadn't been there before was half open. It led into a hallway. Linoleum floors, fluorescent lights overhead. It didn't match the rest of the gas station. Too new, too clean. We stepped inside. It wasn't a hallway. It was a loop. We passed a room on the left that looked like the inside of a diner. Not the diner we'd seen earlier in town, but a version of it. Too clean, too quiet. We turned a corner and found ourselves passing it again. The same room, same booth, same coffee stain on the menu. Third time around, there was someone in the booth. Drew. Not Drew. Something wearing him. He looked up and smiled. Waved. We didn't stop to talk. We kept walking, turning, breathing hard. Each loop brought new rooms. A motel room with red-stained carpet, a classroom with a single desk, a basement that stretched into darkness. In one hallway, we passed a mirror. I didn't look at it. Jen did. She stopped cold. Jake, she said, voice trembling. In the mirror. I looked. It wasn't us. Well, it looked like us. But we were different. Sunken. Worn down. Like we'd been there for years. Our clothes were faded. My eyes were empty. And mirror Jen? She was smiling. Not happily, like someone finally accepting a long punishment. I blinked. The reflection didn't. We kept moving until the hallway dumped us back outside. Back at Carson's. Same lights. Same night. Same silence. Only now the gas station had a second floor. There hadn't been one before. I was about to ask Jen if she saw it when we heard the door chime behind us. We turned. A man walked out of Carson's. Not the old clerk. Drew. Same clothes. Same height. But wrong. He didn't say anything. Just nodded at us as he passed. Got into the white sedan we'd seen the night before. Started the engine. Drew. I shouted. He looked at me. Eyes flat. Empty. Welcome back, he said. Then drove into the fog. No sound of tires. No taillights. He vanished into the stillness like a dream ending too suddenly. Jen looked like she was going to fall over. We're not alone, she whispered. And we're not the first. And maybe we're not even the originals anymore. Part 5. The Shift. That night, if it was night, we didn't sleep. We stayed behind the station, backs to the wall, watching the door like it might come alive. The lights inside flickered like a heartbeat. Jen sat curled up, her fingers twitching, mumbling numbers under her breath. I didn't ask what they meant. I was afraid she wouldn't know, or worse, that she would. Eventually, I stood up. I had to move. The stillness had weight. Like if I sat too long, I'd start to rot into the pavement. I walked around to the front. Carson's hadn't changed this time. Same windows. Same flickering sign. But the pump, the one that had disappeared, was back. And not just back. It was working. The display was lit. The nozzle was hanging loose, dripping fuel onto the gravel. But no one was there. Then I noticed something on the door. A paper, taped from the inside. Faded ink. Barely legible. Shift schedule. Beneath it, a list of names, dates, and times. Some crossed out, others still readable. Most had strange entries next to them. Didn't adapt. Echoed too soon. Reset in progress. At the bottom, a name I recognized. Jacob L. Current. Next to it, handwritten in red ink. Active. Begin. Infinity. I took a step back like it burned me. My full name. No one in the group knew my middle initial. Not even Jen. I turned to run and found myself face to face with her. She looked exhausted, but calm. Too calm. I had a dream, she said. Her voice was flat. Dreamlike. In the dream, you were behind the counter, ringing people up. You didn't recognize me. You just smiled and said, "Next." I didn't know what to say. She kept going. I wasn't alone either. There were other versions of me. Of us. Each one a little worse. One was crying. One was bleeding. One just stared at the mirror until she disappeared. I grabbed her arm gently. "Jennu." "No. Listen," she snapped. "I think it's copying us. Every time we come back, it learns more. The version of Drew we saw? It wasn't real. It was a placeholder. A replacement. Why?" I asked. "Why do all this?" "I don't know," she said. "But I think this place isn't a trap." "What is it then?" She looked up at the sign. "It's a system." That word hit me harder than I expected. Not a ghost town. Not a cursed building. A process. Some kind of impossible machine with us stuck inside. We went back inside Carson's, cautiously this time. The lights had stabilized. The cooler was humming steadily, but the layout had changed. Again, the counter was now on the left. The door to the bathroom was gone, and where the mirror had once been, a staircase, leading down. I looked at Jen. "Do we go?" She nodded, but her eyes were blank. We descended. The basement wasn't a basement. It was a hallway, narrow, endless, fluorescent lit. The walls pulsed slightly, like breathing. At intervals along the corridor were doors, each one labeled Drew 03, Taylor 07, JN 02, JN 04, Jake 05. I stopped at mine. There was a small window in the center. Inside was me, asleep at the counter, head resting on my folded arms, the receipt printer endlessly spitting out blank paper. I looked at Jen's door. Inside was her, sitting perfectly still in the same blue dress we saw on the porch woman. She touched the glass. Then, behind us, we heard it. The ding. The door chime. Someone had entered the station. Another group. New voices. New footsteps. Jen turned to me, eyes wide with sudden clarity. "It's our shift now." Part 6. Welcome back to Carson's. I don't know how long we stayed down there. Time doesn't work in the basement. There's no clock, no sun, just the constant, buzzing light and the low hum of machinery behind the walls. Like the building is breathing, thinking. I remember the feeling, though, that sense that everything, every loop, every face we'd seen, every flickering change in the station had been leading to this place, this corridor of selves. We wandered for a while. The further we went, the less the doors looked like doors. Some were just shadows. Some were mirrors nailed to blank concrete. Others were open, leading into rooms with TVs playing static and voices we almost recognized. Some doors were labeled with names we didn't know. Some were labeled with our own names. Again, I passed another Jake door. This one said Jake, 12. The window showed me lying on the ground in front of Carson's, eyes wide, mouth moving like I was screaming, but no sound coming out. Jen saw her own reflection flicker and glitch. We started running. We didn't have a plan. We didn't know where we were going. But the hallway finally turned and ended at a ladder, bolted into the wall, leading upward toward a hatch. The air smelled like gasoline and ozone. We climbed. When we emerged, we were back inside the station, behind the counter. Empty. The world outside was dim. Twilight. The sign flickered, but something was different. There was a car pulling in. A beat-up Honda. 5 people inside. College kids, laughing, tired. One of them, a girl in the back, looked scared. They stepped out. I tried to scream at them. I tried to bang on the window, to warn them, but they didn't hear me. They couldn't see me. I looked at Jen. She wasn't beside me anymore. She was outside, on the porch, wearing the blue dress, sweeping. One of the kids, the scared girl, pointed at her. She looks familiar, I heard through the glass. I turned toward the counter and saw a note sitting there. Next, and behind me, a mirror. I walked to it slowly, against every instinct in my body. My reflection smiled at me. Not a happy smile, a knowing one, like it had been waiting for me to catch up. Then the chime rang. Someone was walking in. This story has come to an end. Ever had something like this happen to you? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next true horror story.